Welcome to the deep dive. So late 2022, right? That was the moment generative AI just exploded onto the scene. ChatGPT really made it mainstream, went from this sort of niche research thing to, well, everywhere. But the thing is, this field moves so incredibly fast. What's cutting edge today is, practically history next week. So our mission in this deep dive isn't really about catching up on now, it's about looking ahead. We've got a stack of sources here, all focused on what's next. Specifically, we're digging into the big ideas from the very first MIT Generative AI Impact Consortium Symposium, MGIIC. That was back on September 17th. We're basically trying to give you the roadmap. Where's this all heading? And why should you care?
Yeah, and if you had to capture let's say, the vibe of that whole event, it wasn't just, wow, look at this cool tech. It was actually dominated by this feeling of urgency. Yeah. And responsibility, big time. MIT Provost Ananda Chandrakasan really set that tone. He basically said our human wisdom, our ethics, they have to develop just as fast as the AI itself. We absolutely cannot let the technology race ahead of our ability to manage it responsibly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that's significant, right? When the leadership at MIT kicks things off talking about ethics first, that tells you a lot about the stakes involved here. And MIT President Sally Kornbluth echoed that. She said the goal isn't just building, more powerful AI, it's about managing it responsibly so that society can actually, quote, depend on it in real-world applications.
Exactly, and depend on it. They don't just mean like using it to write emails faster. They're talking about the heavy stuff, healthcare, financial systems, managing critical infrastructure. If Gen AI is going to shift from being a sort of creative assistant to an essential service, trust is non-negotiable. It has to be baked in from the start. It's this kind of necessary balancing act, isn't it, between the speed of innovation and societal readiness.
That makes total sense. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the tech itself, specifically the most maybe provocative debate from the symposium. This came from the keynote speaker, Yann LeCun. He's the chief AI scientist over at Meta. And he essentially threw down a gauntlet. He argued pretty forcefully that the next big leaps in AI, they're not coming from just making current LLMs bigger. The GPTs, Claude, Llama. He thinks that whole approach is maybe hitting a wall.
What's fascinating here is what he proposed instead. And this is, I think, the key concept for everyone listening to grasp. He says the future is in world models. Now, this isn't just tweaking algorithms. It's a fundamental shift in how AI learns. Instead of feeding it mountains of text and images scraped off the internet, world models learn by interacting continuously through senses with their environment in real time.
Okay, hang on. Help me translate that. For someone using, say, ChatGPT every day, how is a world model really different from just a smarter version of that?
Right. Think about what LLMs excel at. They're amazing with language, right? Synthesis, abstraction, reasoning about stuff described in text. They manipulate symbols brilliantly, but they don't actually understand the physical world, like inherently. Gravity, friction, what happens if you push something versus lift it. They don't know that stuff from experience. A world model, though, it learns those implicit rules, the physics, the interactions, just by observing, predicting what happens next, and then seeing if it was right. It learns cause and effect.
Oh, okay. So it's not just recognizing the words glass of water. It's understanding the implications, the weight, how to grip it, what happens if you drop it on the floor. That's a huge gap.
It really is. And LeCun hammered this point home with this really striking comparison. It sticks with you. He said, and I'm quoting here, a 4-year-old has already processed as much visual data as the largest LLM.
Wow. Wow. A 4-year-old, all that visual sensory input, that completely reframes things, doesn't it? It shows how limited current LLMs are when it comes to just basic physical intuition. I mean, ask the smartest LLM today to, tie a shoelace blindfolded. It can describe it, maybe, but it can't do it. It lacks that learned experience.
Exactly right. And the upshot, the practical implication, is that these world models, they're probably essential if we want robotics to become truly versatile and useful. Think about it. If a robot can actually internalize the rules of its environment, it can tackle new tasks, learn a new process on an assembly line, navigate a cluttered room it's never seen, all without needing someone to program every single step. It becomes adaptive.
I definitely see the appeal, especially for robots. But LeCun's point is pretty disruptive, isn't it? I mean, think about the billions, tens of billions being poured into scaling up LLMs right now, globally. Is it realistic to just pivot to world models? Like, what happens in the meantime? Are Google and OpenAI just going to scrap their huge language infrastructures?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? And no, the feeling wasn't that LLMs are dead tomorrow. It's more that they need to evolve fast into systems that can handle multiple types of input, especially sensory data, multimodal systems. LeCun's main point, I think, was that relying only on scaling text data gives diminishing returns. You hit a ceiling. So the pivot isn't about throwing away text. It's about adding continuous real-world sensory learning on top. And for anyone worried about, Terminator scenarios, the source mentioned, LeCun waved those fears away. He stressed that these systems need guardrails, limits, built-in safety, just like any powerful technology.
Okay, so we've got LeCun's kind of far future vision laid out.
Yeah.
World models, sensory learning. Here's where it gets really interesting, because we need to bridge that gap from the long-term theory to what's actually happening on the ground right now. And ironically, using the very tech LeCun was critiquing, in a way, this bridge came from Ty Brady. He's the chief technologist at Amazon Robotics.
Yeah, this is a great contrast. LeCun talks about the limits of current architectures for, general AI, but Brady shows how even today's generative AI, based on deep learning, reinforcement learning, is incredibly powerful when you apply it to a specific, complex industrial problem.
And Amazon's warehouses. I mean, talk about a proving ground for efficiency, right?
Oh,
Now,
sure.
what specific things did he mention?
Oh, yeah, they're definitely the ultimate test bed. Brady got into specifics. This isn't just experimental stuff in their fulfillment centers. Gen AI is actively running logistics. It's figuring out the absolute best paths for thousands of robots moving around, managing how materials flow through the warehouse, even predicting demand to store things in the smartest places. This has a direct, real impact on getting packages out faster, using less energy. It's core to their operations now.
That sounds like a huge leap in efficiency. But does it mean, fewer human workers? Or is the AI working with people?
Yeah. Brady was definitely looking ahead towards collaboration. That seemed to be his big focus. He stressed that the really big wins are going to be in collaborative robotics, cobots, where the AI systems and the human workers operate like a seamless team. The AI takes over the really repetitive stuff, or the dangerous tasks, or things requiring intense spatial calculation. And that frees up the humans for things like quality control, problem solving, tasks needing more complex judgment.
His overall assessment was pretty powerful, wasn't it? I think he called generative AI the most impactful technology I've witnessed in my entire robotics career. That's a heavy statement from someone running robotics at Amazon scale.
Absolutely. When you hear that from someone like Brady, it tells you this isn't hype anymore. It's moved way past the proof of concept stage. It's delivering real, measurable economic value in incredibly complex places.
Okay, but Amazon obviously has enormous resources, scale, capital. They can pour money into these super advanced systems. Does this mean this kind of industrial AI robotics is only for the giants? Are smaller companies, maybe specialized manufacturers, just getting left behind? Can they afford this?
That's a really important question, the whole democratization angle. And yeah, the big players like Amazon definitely lead the charge with the initial heavy investment. But what often happens, and what the Symposium sources hinted at, is that the tools and the platforms get more modular. They become cloud services. So while Amazon might be setting the pace now, the innovation itself actually helps drive down the cost and complexity for others later on. Plus, that focus Brady mentioned on collaboration AI augmenting human teams, that's often a much less capital-intensive way for smaller firms to get started compared to, say, trying to fully automate an entire production line.
Right, that makes sense. It's not all or nothing automation. Okay, let's widen the lens again. Because the MIT Symposium, MGAIC, it wasn't just about robotics. It really covered a huge range of industries. You had giants there like Coca-Cola, analog devices, but also really crucial specialists, especially in healthcare. A bridge was mentioned. It really feels like this is touching almost every sector.
Definitely. And you saw that breadth reflected in the academic research presented by the MIT faculty, too. Their work wasn't just about, let's build bigger models. It was focused on tackling the known problems with current Gen AI. Things like bias, making stuff up hallucinations, and just not having a good grasp of the real world visually. We should probably break down the three main research areas they highlighted, just to make it clear.
Yeah, lay them out for us.
Yeah.
What was the first big focus?
Okay, first area, data clarity. Specifically, they're building tools to clean up noisy image data from ecological sources. Think about drone footage of a coral reef or satellite images tracking deforestation. That data can be super messy, blurry, partly blocked, glitches. This MIT research is essentially creating AI filters, really sophisticated ones, to make that noisy sensor data crystal clear so that other AI systems can then reliably analyze, say, the health of that ecosystem. It's foundational for environmental AI.
Okay, got it. Cleaning up messy real-world data. Makes sense. What was number two?
Second area tackles those trust issues we mentioned earlier. Directly. They're designing AI frameworks specifically to reduce bias and hallucinations. You can almost think of it like building an immune system for the AI. Hallucinations are when the AI just confidently makes things up. Bias is when it spits out harmful stereotypes it learned from bad data. These frameworks are meant to actively monitor the AI's output, catch those errors, and correct them before they get to the user, building in guardrails.
So not just hoping the next version of the model is less biased, but actually building active safety nets into the system itself. That feels critical for using this stuff reliably.
Exactly. And the third research area, it ties directly back to that gap Bakun was talking about. It's about finding new ways to help current LLMs get a much better handle on the visual world, a deeper, more spatial understanding.
Okay. So taking these language experts, these LLMs, and actually teaching them some basic physics, some spatial awareness, kind of nudging them towards being more like those sensory world models, but maybe without having to rebuild everything from scratch immediately.
Precisely. It's like the essential stepping stone. These researchers are trying to give LLMs eyes and the ability to interpret what they see, not just as patterns of pixels, but as, 3D objects that exist in space have relationships and where actions have consequences. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you look at the range of these projects: environment, bias, robotics, vision. It just underscores how generative AI isn't just one thing. It's forcing changes and creating new possibilities across almost every field. Major infrastructural shifts. Vivek Farias, one of the MJIC co-leads, he summed up the whole feeling at the end. He said he hoped people left with two things: a sense of possibility and a sense of urgency. Possibility because, well, the potential positive impact is enormous. Urgency because actually achieving that potential requires careful, thoughtful guidance now, that ethical piece again.
So what does this all mean? What's the bottom line for you listening? I think the big message from MIT is pretty clear. This generative AI revolution we've seen so far, mostly driven by language models, that might just be Act 1. The next chapter, this idea of world models, could be even more transformative. It could unlock breakthroughs in autonomous systems, robotics, AI, that can truly adapt to the real world. But, and it's a big but, getting there successfully, as all the MIT leaders emphasized, really depends on doing it right. It needs collaboration, it needs vision, and it absolutely needs that deep sense of responsibility, making sure our ethics keep pace with the algorithms.
Which leaves us with maybe one last thought to chew on, riffing off that 4-year-old comparison that struck with us. If the benchmark for truly smart adaptive AI is that constant flood of sensory experience a young child gets, how radically do we need to rethink what kind of data we're feeding our AI systems? The challenge seems to be shifting, doesn't it? From just gathering more text to figuring out how to build systems that can genuinely ingest, understand, and learn from rich, messy, continuous, real-world sensory input. That feels like the next frontier, maybe the real frontier for AI data science.